Hi, everyone. Welcome to the next session of Spiritual Beings Virtual Summit. We are up to session 7. It has been an amazing summit so far, and I am so excited for this session, for you all to be jumping in. We have some very special guests today joining us, and I love that we have a whole session that's dedicated to the topic and subject of mindfulness, because as we've been saying, within our whole spiritual beings ecosystem, we are wanting to really bring something that is different into Web3, bring an emphasis and a focus of spirituality. We really believe that it's something that is so valuable and can have such incredible transformational change within all of us. And our heart is that we would all be living the very best versions of who we are. And mindfulness can play an incredible part in that. So please just enjoy this time. I, as always, encourage you just to maybe one thing that's said today that you take a hold of and leave and are able to process and discern that for what it means for your life and your situation. But there's lots that will be disseminated and lots that will be shared, and it will be all here available as a replay for you to go back and look. But without further ado, I want you to meet all of our incredible panelists today. So we have Rebecca, Cynthia, Brad, Layla, and Shira. So we have a packed house, and I'm so excited for you all to hear from them. So firstly, I'm going to hand it over to you, panelists. Would you like to introduce yourself and just tell us all just a little bit about you? Rebecca, I think you should start because people will know why I've chosen you as soon as you open your mouth.
No pressure there at all, but no. Hi everyone.
There we go.
I'm Rebecca.
Australian accent.
I am from. I have a company called Life by 8 that I started this year, and my mindfulness journey started mid last year. If we want to go straight into talking, like as in for modalities for mindfulness, but for me, the journey for personal development has been going on for years. But last year I went to a conscious workshop, in person, and they introduced me to breathwork. They introduced me to cold exposure and ice bath. Now I am Australian and I do swear a lot, so I'm not going to swear in this, but I did in the ice bath a lot. And meditation. And because meditation was something that I used to always say, I can't do it. My brain's too fast. But the way in which they introduced those modalities to me has transformed my entire life in almost 12, it's been just over 12 months. And so where I was then to where I am now is a completely different person. The way I respond and react in situations, the way I feel, I see people, everything is different. So for me, mindfulness is everything. And after the pandemic and discovering Web3, it's like, for me, it's the right time for all the dots in my life have come together to connect. And it's like all of me in one package. And so for me, mindfulness is everything. And the more people that know about it, the better.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you're part of our conversation today. Who would like to go next?
I can go next.
Yes.
I don't have an Australian accent, so
that's okay.
My name is Sin Bahati, also Cynthia, Sin, whichever. And I joined Web3 kind of like as a result of the pandemic as well and COVID back in 2020. And at the same time that I got into Web3 and got into thinking about sovereignty in terms of finance, I was also dealing with a lot of health complications. And I was let go from my traditional job at a bank. So I had a lot of free time and I took up courses in flower essences, nutrition, like wellness, and one in breath work that I've been studying for the past 2 years and has really impacted my life. And it's interesting how my growth in Web3 has been parallel to my my wellness growth as well. With Web3, I run Gentry Media and I do a lot of marketing. It's really fast paced. Even in, everyone wants to like communicate their story and to share their NFT project or their DeFi protocol. And I'm in Discord constantly, all of the time. And yeah, we're just known to give good results for our clients on Discord, but I'm learning to like take a break and not be all the time in Web3. But so yeah, that's me. And I'm super excited for this conversation.
Amazing. Thank you, Sin. It's lovely to have you here. Brad, I'd love to hear your introduction.
Thank you, Jody. And very honored to be here. Thank you all very much for having me. Hi, my name is Brad. I'm based in Los Angeles. I am a yoga instructor and mindfulness leader as well. I've been doing it for, I guess, about 12 years or so now. ERYT through Yoga Alliance and CE, all those fun little things. But yeah, I sort of got involved in this process quite some time ago when I was just looking for an opportunity to deepen my connection to my community, deepen my understanding to myself, and just I'm very big about like having functional tools to aid me in my journey. So it's all good to hear about like, this is ideas for how you could reduce stress or reduce pain in the body or find, friends and deepen your community. But when you actually have those places to go to, or those ideas or those techniques, the technology that's behind them, I've found that when I was introduced to that and have continued to be as really what I like to dub myself a forever student, that the opportunity to live at a heightened state and to offer that to other people has really become a big part of my life's mission. So I merged that where I currently teach both group classes and private classes, and I also work as a movie producer. A big portion of what I do being to try and create movies that can put mindfulness and good messages out there into the world, right? To just further this mission of bringing kind of like joy and lightness and just consciousness to the world. So very excited to be here. Thank you very much for having me, and I look forward to this panel very much.
Amazing. Thank you, Brad. Wow, that's a great portfolio there. Many different things that are happening, which is really exciting. Thank you. Thank you, Shira.
Sure. Hi, thank you for having me, Jody. My name is Shira Myro. I am a marriage and family therapist with a specialization in trauma, attachment wounding, and I specialize in couples and marriage work. I have a mindfulness-based practice that is an integrative practice with both Gottman method and emotionally focused therapy. But as I have continued, not only in my own mindfulness journey, I have found that mindfulness is really a pillar, such a necessity for the therapeutic work that it's kind of a missing link, if you will. Everything from helping with emotional regulation to perspective taking, to create an internal sense of spaciousness when people are feeling distressed or maybe having some PTSD come up, and also in rethinking the quality of their relationships, of how they communicate, how they listen, how they manage to be less defensive or less reactive. So it's such a powerful pillar of the work that I do, which is especially related to trauma work, but I see its application in almost everything. So I'm also a writer and a speaker, and I did have, I don't know if Ian told you, I was part of founder and curriculum director for a meditation and mindfulness app several years ago, pre-pandemic. And the idea was to try to find both therapists and wellness experts who were also mindfulness and meditation teachers. So that was a step into that universe for a while. And what was fascinating about that was how do you use technology as a mediator for insight and spirituality and awareness, and that that's a really interesting, I want to say fluid edge, and we'll probably talk a lot more about that today. But I think it's also a very subjective, personal edge, and something that everybody has to figure out how they're going to be in relationship to. So thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And wow, that app sounds incredible. And I love that, you can kind of intersect in that kind of techie world with something that is so, beautiful as the work that you're doing. Thank you, Shira. And Layla, last but not least.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here. I'm very excited to be part of this and to meet all of you and share our insights. My name is Layla, and I am a mindset and manifestation coach. This is actually a very recent pivot in what I'm focusing on right now. In the past 2 years, I've worked mostly in Web3, building various kinds of DeFi protocols, as well as researching for funds. But I am a very spiritual, philosophical, conscious-minded being, and I always have been, and that's sort of my core characteristic if you get to know me. So I've always been asking myself, how can I combine these two interests? Because I am still extremely inspired by Web3, and I don't think that passion is going anywhere. But I really wanted to find a career that satisfied me on a deeper soul level, and I'm very driven by helping people. That is my intrinsic motivation. So I'm super excited because right now I found something that covers all 4 quadrants of that Japanese concept ikigai, if you've heard of it, which is what you do should be something you like, something you're good at, something you can make money from, and something the world needs. And I think I found that now. So what I do with mindfulness and meditation is I bring it into my practice to help my clients manifest better, because you need to be really mindful of your thoughts, the programmings coming from your subconscious mind, in order to gain control over them and create your reality more fluidly. But at the same time, I am having all these ideas, which I need to slow down because I tend to get ahead of myself. But how can I bring this new project into Web3 and into tech? So I am thinking of various apps I can build to help with like subliminal affirmations that play while you sleep, and meditation and things like that. So a lot going on, and I'm super excited to discuss it all with you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And I love that you're in that space. Isn't that incredible that you've found your spot? And I really, we really believe strongly in spiritual beings, that Web3 is obviously headed. Is so much happening in Web3. So much of the life is coming into Web3. And so spirituality is a really important part of life, and so it needs to be in the heart of Web3 as well, and there's a place for it and a need for it. So it's almost like there's that place where everything can intersect and come together, which is really exciting. So you've all kind of described what mindfulness is in terms of what you're doing and how it outworks, but I'd love to hear about maybe how you were first attracted to mindfulness. What was it that was that kind of catalyst for you stepping into that? And do you have a story from your own experience where mindfulness really helped you in a situation? I'm sure there's multiple, but if you can think of one specific time maybe that it kind of informed what you were doing in that moment, that would be amazing, how it just was supporting you. So I'd love to hear if anyone has something straight away that they can think of.
I might just stay off mute because it's pretty quiet here, just so that
Yes.
to just bounce the conversation a bit more. But Brad, your face lit up first when she was talking then. So maybe you go first because something came straight to mind for you.
Yeah.
I do have a funny story regarding sort of there's so many ways to, what an interesting word, like mindfulness in general, because if you really break down the etymology of it, it's like mindful, the mind is full, when theoretically we're almost trying to going towards a point with some meditations and breathing techniques to to focus the brain, to kind of get to more of an emptier state where the thoughts are picked specifically. So I've always thought of it as more like mind emptiness versus mindfulness in a way. But for me, and this is sort of one of the techniques that I introduced myself to, was when I was burning the candle at both ends and going through my initial 500-hour certification, I was introduced to Yoga Nidra rest meditation. And I'm very type A. I'm very much, get everything done and then do some more things. And napping, I've always been like a self-declared non-napper. Oh, I can't nap. I couldn't possibly, like that's just it. I have too much stuff to do. And then I would realize that I started to get burnt out. My body would be physically tired. I wouldn't be able to concentrate as well. Things would suffer when you're not sort of adhering to the rest that the body and the brain need. And so when I was introduced to Yoga Nidra meditation, I was like, oh, all right, well, this could work because it's an active, I don't know how many people are familiar with it, but it's like an active rest meditation that's guided through anywhere from like 8 minutes to, hours. It's been around for as long as the yogic technology, but I went through my first meditation as a non-napper, thinking, well, I'm just gonna pay attention and win this meditation. And I can recount to the day everything that my meditation teacher, Yoga Nidra teacher, her name is Hilary Jackendoff, was instructing during the meditation, like almost word for word. And at the end of it, my wife was going through the process with me as well. And I was like, well, that was really interesting, but like, I don't understand this whole sleep situation because like, I can tell you everything that, she said in the meditation. And my wife looks at me and just goes, you were snoring. I was like, what? What are you talking about? Like, I can tell you word for word what she was saying. And so one of the wildest things about that is I like no reminiscence or no memory of whatsoever of being asleep. But that was like one of the tools that I was introduced to in mindfulness, where like, if it means that I can have time to slow down and find this one technology that allows me to focus my mind, to experience more mindfulness, to listen to, guided ahimsa in a lot of ways, not, loving kindness, and then to also experience those benefits sometimes of a full sleep cycle, like that was mind blowing for me. So if anybody out there is like challenged by napping or slowing down, or like if you're one of those like counting sheep people when you go to bed, I found that is a true story for me, and also something that I found a very useful technique to explore slowing down in mindfulness in my life.
Amazing. Thank you. I love that story. I can imagine the surprise on your face. Yeah. Incredible. I love it.
Layla. Well, I'm just looking at faces going, whose
yes.
body language is like speaking in the thing.
Yeah.
Sure. So one of my favorite things about mindfulness is just the expansion of your presence in that present moment, which really translates into the fullness of your aliveness. I just feel a lot more involved in life, involved in that moment, more expansive, more exuberant. And I think it's kind of a ripoff to live a life where you don't get those feelings. To live a life where we are constantly following our to-do list, our calendar, just on the go, in our heads, juggling all these different tabs, and life flies by us. And that's why people, they're into things like ice plunges or, extreme sports, all these things that kind of freeze their awareness for a second and focus it right here, right now. But if you can train your brain to be able to experience that a lot more often, even just like, enjoying a cup of tea in the morning, going for a walk by the beach or something, you live a much more abundant life in every way. And a happier one too. I think that's really what contributes to my consistent joy. Like anyone who knows me knows that I'm sort of like a child. Like I'm always just happy and I get happy by the smallest things. And that's not frivolous. It's very deep, and I've built that up over many years of effort and mindfulness and intention.
Amazing. I love that about you. I love that characteristic. It's an amazing thing to be able to carry and for that to be part of your posture and identity. And Shira, I would love to hear, I'm sure you help so many people. How is it for you? How do you personally experience mindfulness? And do you have situations where you can think of that it helps inform your daily life?
Just figure out a sure way to answer that. I mean, my mindfulness journey started very, very young. My father was sort of a spiritual eclectic, and I learned transcendental meditation when I was 6. So it started there. He used to play, you guys are probably too young to remember what cassette tapes are, but he used to play these Jack Kornfield cassette tapes and Ram Dass tapes in the car on the way to the Transcendental Meditation Center, and we fall asleep to Jack Kornfield. Like, my sisters and I had this joke that he was actually a somnambulist because he was so calm and relaxing. And of course, I love Jack, and I'm obsessed with Jack now. But I think at that young age, and that's a whole other separate question, but I couldn't, I didn't have the container for that now. And now I really see mindfulness as such an anchor every day. I would say personally, I have 2 teenage sons, and that will put anybody in the test. I find, and I'm not always able to be mindful and responsive and compassionate. Sometimes it's a mirror. It shows you where you are when you flip out. It's intense, and I'm always trying to reflect, hey, is there a way I could have handled that or have been a little bit more compassionate or down. I would say that is maybe the first rule is the slowing down. And I think it's true in the world that we live in, and much of our lives are online in so many technological spaces where we are really, it's not true, but we function as if we're a bottomless receptacle for infinite stimulus. And it's simply our nervous systems are not designed to receive endless stimulation. So in a sense, we have to be stewards of our consciousness and stewards of our nervous system, and be able to have that spacious awareness to check in with ourselves and say, hey, did I have enough for today, right? Do I need to go take a walk? Do I need to turn off my computer? Do I need to just pause and check in with myself? And I think what's so fascinating, I guess the last point I'll make, is that in relationship, we have, if you're coming off a day where there's endless stimulation, I think they say the average number of hours the American adult spends online is over 7 hours on their phone, just their phone, over 7 hours. The average American teen, close to 9. So that's a huge part of your day. And I think we get mesmerized and seduced by it, but then when we come back down, it's really hard to check in and be in relationship with someone else and be present with someone else. And I think that is one of the challenges of our time, which is how do we transition from tech space to interpersonal space? So that's why mindfulness is really so useful, and essential, I think.
Yes.
Can I jump in just like one sentence, like an example from this morning, for instance, a year ago from me to now, and I have 2 boys, so I'm scared. They're 10 and 5, but this morning I didn't sleep yesterday or today, really, and not because I just couldn't actually get to sleep, but this morning when my children were heightened and I wanted to respond how I used to, and I still do and every single day, but I went, you know what, this is not the way I'm feeling, is not their fault. I chose to stay up last night, to not go to sleep till 3 o'clock, to do what I did. That's my choice, not theirs. How can I bring this back to, I don't have to parent them today. I'm lucky that I get to. And that was able to bring, that's a statement that I've learned in this year of mindfulness for me and wellness, is that it brought me straight back and into the moment, and to not go that way. It just brought me back into the moment that Layla was talking about, is, that aliveness, that nest of life. It's really our responsibility. And I just wanted to, that was 2 hours ago. So
that's amazing.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, and thank you for that example, Rebecca. It's such a great real-time example for us to see exactly what we're talking about, and having those moments where you can literally just come into it and bring that mindfulness into that situation is
2018
incredible.
was, you know, I was under a desk having a breakdown because in the dark, and my
Yeah.
staff found me in there, right? And it wasn't even the pandemic yet, but all that work that's happened since then, you know, the same thing, that an exact thing that happened yesterday with, you know, worried about judgment of some, you know, something happens, story is the story we tell ourselves. But the way I was able to move through that emotion because of all of these modalities and these things, compared to 2018, where it ended up being months of recovery, you know, as we were saying, or Brad was saying, is, you know, we can't burn out. Like, the recovery from burnout is so much longer than people think. Burnout is not going on a holiday for a week. Like, you get burnt out, you go for a holiday for a week and you're going to be fine. That's actually not what it is. It can be years and decades before you can actually recover fully to the human being that you had, the potential you had back then. So you can't, it's not something that you can be reactive with. We've got to be proactive in it, and we've got to try to be self-aware, but also use our abilities to share that awareness with others. And Sin, your life is busy too, like you were saying, with marketing and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was just, you're going to say Sin is in Web3, in the heart of it. And I'm sure, you know, at the pace that is unrelenting. So I'd love to hear, Sin, how mindfulness informs your kind of rhythms and daily choices.
Well, that's a good question. I feel like I'm a little bit of a spy in the sense that I'm in technology and I interface with technology all the time. It's a part of my life. It's what I do. But I also am deeply interested and invested in like caring for the soul and the spirit and nature. And so my role in Web3, the way that I see it, is like I'm a technologist, but I'm an artist in disguise. Like, I really care about crafting technologies and games and applications and protocols that don't divorce us from nature or divorce us from the body. So things of like, there's actual ways that developers program addiction into the software that we use that I'm very mindful to not participate in, very mindful to not market those sorts of things, because I don't want to contribute more of that. And so, yeah, I see myself as like kind of like in this space, but not of it in a way. So my thing is more so like, I think that Web3 is great. I think sovereignty enables so much. But like, these connections can be made offline as well. And I really like want to emphasize that in my work. My grandfather was and is like deeply into somatic awareness and somatic embodiment. And he tells me all the time that like, technology is great. It's a medium for change, but the actual change begins within the body. And he was talking about breath work like in the 60s, 70s, way before I was born. And that's something that I use all the time. And that I'm realizing that a lot of conscious-minded people in the space also rely on breath work as a tool to regulate ourselves, as a tool to kind of like get back to center, because we know how the body interfaces with the technology of breath. We don't know the long-term effects of the actual like online spaces. So it's like we're walking in terrain, but we're using old ancient technologies to do that. And I think what I like about Web3 is that there is a lot of conscious creators that are also interested in breath work and other healing modalities, and interested in preserving those modalities on the blockchain. So it's just a really interesting sector of the internet, and how healing and wellness and mindfulness intersects with it is profoundly like interesting to me. So.
Yeah, and thank you, Sin, and it is fascinating. And I think part of it is that, you know, mindfulness isn't for everyone. And And although we can say this is really needed and everyone needs to be in these, especially in these kind of environments, some people, I guess, are reticent. They're apprehensive. They're just not sure about it. And Shara, imagine that you have clients and people that you're trying to help, and this you think, oh, if only they would. What do you think is like maybe one of the reasons why people are not really interested in it and reticent to adapt it, and maybe how could we help facilitate people and kind of onboard them in a kind of way?
Oh, it's a wonderful question, and it's tough. I do think mindfulness and meditation, it's been around, right, for millennia. But there was a certain point, I think pre-COVID, where it was everywhere, and there's kind of perhaps a sense of saturation in the culture. And then you had things like, these 5-minute apps, meditation apps, or these hacks. I'm very against the idea of hacks, just in general. I have problem marriage hacks, mindfulness hacks, because I think it's so contrary to everything that we're talking about being intentional and attentional and integrating and aligning our intentions with our values and who we want to become. But I think, relative to your question, if people aren't interested in mindfulness, or it's not a panacea, right? It's not a it's not going to treat every ailment. And I think you have to be respectful, just like, there's a million types of therapeutic modalities, like even psychotherapy, there's psychedelic therapy, there's, cognitive behavioral therapy, there's so many different modalities, somatic work. The most important thing is to meet people where they're at and to perhaps find language that resonates with them. Because ultimately, you could couch very similar ideas. And I think, as people in the wellness space, there's lots of frames that are similar but slightly different, but very similar. It matters more that you really connect and meet them where they are and work together to find something that they resonate with. And that, it's, I think, one of the challenges, certainly in my work, is we're always looking for patterns. Especially like in relational dynamics or behavioral dynamics, historical dynamics. You're looking for patterning. You're looking to see, where the mind goes or how the body contracts. And what we're trying to do is to bring awareness and then ultimately dismantle those patterns. And I think what's you never want to get out in front of someone. You want to walk with them. Because it doesn't matter how much you see or how quickly you see it, or, sometimes a couple walks in and I map the cycle and I'm like, aha, this, and this. It's irrelevant. They need to feel like they've come to it on their own. They need to feel like it's wisdom that they arrived at themselves, in terms of it feeling tangible. And it feeling that they can apply it and they can integrate it into their daily walk, whatever that looks like. So there's a little nuance, I would say.
Yeah, and that
Curious.
makes total sense. I love the idea of not walking ahead, but walking beside, because I think I see all the nods, because I think that is something that we've all experienced, where it's no one wants to be told what to do, and it's you just need someone who's with you in those moments, being very present.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. So how do you think, and Brad, how do you think that mindfulness could support like a Web3 community? I know that, there's so many, you all know so many benefits. How do you think that could be a great support for people in this space?
It's a wonderful question, Jody, and it is so diverse in the answers to that, because I don't know that there's one particular answer that only comes out of mindfulness. Really, I think it's the starting point that can aid in a lot of different things, from enhancing performance to enhancing relationships to promoting healing. It's been a big one for me, mindfulness, and just the different techniques and modalities that speak to that. to promote healing, and not just of human beings, but of the other things we care about, like animals and communities and places like that. As a Reiki practitioner, I consider that one of my aspects of mindfulness as well. And I've seen some wonderful things from focusing my thoughts and my energy, even sometimes over thousands of miles, to see that these things can affect, science is now catching up with a lot of this stuff. For a while, I think there was this idea before quantum physics that energy is not real and we're made of flesh and bone and that's it. And now we're starting to see the power of the ability to manifest the magic of energy and focus and the power of the human mind. We're at the absolute tip of the iceberg. And so, I believe what it is, and a lot of our panelists who spoke that so far is the stimulation is never going to stop. Things are not going to get less busy and less complicated. The challenges are not going to become less complicated, but it's like Brene Brown said, we're hardwired for challenge, but we're deserving of love. And I think mindfulness, regardless of what we're going through in our lives, what we're trying to achieve, that pause, that accept, that awareness, that actualizing the power that you can create when you stop and figure out what's going on behind the scenes beyond all the flashiness, and you can just sit like Layla was speaking to, right? When you can sit and have a moment with a cup of tea, go for a walk on the beach,
Yes.
Or just have time with yourself, because the journey starts in here, because how can I affect the rest of what's out there before I do the work here? And I'm sure Sherry can speak to that a lot too, right there. The healing has to start in here a lot first before we can help others too. And so I think for me, that's what mindfulness can bring to the community, is saying here, like we were talking about, find a language that speaks to the people that you want to work with, so you can be on the same page. Because if you just go into somebody who's new to this thing and you're sprouting out all these terms that don't resonate, or language that, turns somebody off, you're not going to have that same connection as if you just talk to somebody and meet them where they're at. Who knows? Maybe you have a classroom full of neuroscientists and you can just up your language game to that community. But I agree very much with this idea of how can we make this accessible, and then how can we take the diverse potential outcomes of mindfulness and apply them to what it is that you're looking for assistance or enhancement for in your life. Because I think it can be a yes to whatever your question is.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, Layla, jump in.
I'd love to add on to that and also echo something that Shira said, that you meet people where they're at. And I think when it comes to mindfulness, and if we can just define that as bringing more conscious awareness to your life, to your actions, to your mind, the workings of your mind, more intention, people will pursue this and go down this path when they're ready. And that often happens when they need to. So some people are functioning totally fine, living on autopilot, really not being very introspective, or not pausing and not slowing down. And that's fine if that's currently working for them, because everyone's on their own journey. But if they come to a point where they would like to accelerate or break some barriers, some invisible barriers, or bring more attention to the patterns that keep repeating in their life, or less, spiritually, if they just want to enhance their performance and optimize their productivity, then they might find their way to avenues like this and do some research and investigation and find what works for them. Because to put it extremely sort of tangibly and practically, Web3 is technological. We spend a lot of time on our computers, our phones. We're ingesting a lot of information, and our minds are having to cope with a lot more information and process it and have a lot more output. So this has led to a lot more people developing symptoms akin to ADHD, being diagnosed with ADHD. I myself am diagnosed with this. I don't know if I really believe but yeah, either way, sometimes I do take supplements to help me focus, because just the sheer overload of how much I have to remember and answer and write. And I don't like taking these supplements because they don't make me feel good, and I know they're not healthy in the long run. And what I've found is that when I can consistently meditate for a few days, I'm able to concentrate on my work a lot more. My mind wanders less, or should I say, I notice when it wanders faster, and I'm able to redirect it back onto what I want to focus on. And I'm able to get into flow state. So not just for people who, have some challenging tech job, but also for people who are really ambitious and they want to optimize their output in the world, and they have grand visions of what they want to build. they know that the flow state is pivotal to whatever they want to create. Because when you get into flow state, that's when the true genius of consciousness can shine through you. And when you practice mindfulness, you're able to get into flow state a lot easier because you're not being distracted by silly thoughts, or you're able to, put your phone away for 2 hours and not feel the urge to check it and just dedicate this time for flow state. And then more spiritually, what I do, I guess it's not necessarily just spiritual, but I help people create the life of their dreams by bringing attention to the fact that every conscious thought that we have is an order to the subconscious mind, and then the subconscious mind is projected outwards in these scenes, in these experiences and relationships that we have. And when we bring our attention to what our conscious mind is thinking, we can find very sneaky negative thoughts that sneak in there on autopilot when we're doing something else. And those then shape the fabric of our personal reality. And most people aren't aware of this. I know that when I went down this path, I brought a lot of awareness to every single thought I had during the day, and it was exhausting. But I was able to then see, okay, these thoughts are not serving me. These beliefs from which these thoughts arise are not serving me, and I deserve more, and I know I can break through that. So, I brought that awareness to my everyday thoughts when I felt I needed to, because I was ready for that further growth. So that brings me back to what I said in the beginning is, people will go down this path when they're ready and when they need to, and no sooner.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Layla. Thank you for sharing that. Rebecca, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
It took an ADHD diagnosis for me to stop thinking I was broken. So I own 2 early learning centres. That's childcare in Australia. So they're Montessori. We started a primary school 3 years ago, and we have the high school opening. When I say that Montessori being a way of life, and that's where Web3 and all of this mindfulness journey comes in together, is that flow state that Layla was talking about, that ability to get deep on something that you like and love and want to go and have the time to do it. In Montessori, you have a 3-hour work cycle where you're uninterrupted. You don't do what we do in traditional schooling. And so for me, that's the proactive work I've been able to do for the last 9 years. But the journey, while I was on my journey of reactive work on myself, because it's right, Brad, you can't help everybody else if you aren't there yourself. So that has then aligned to where we are now with the pandemic and all of that coming through, is that I've got educators and teachers who are burning out. And I have always served as a translator in the sense of I try to view it from the point of the mainstream or the people who haven't deep dived. So I don't use the word spiritual. I will more now, Jody, because your NFT project's amazing. But spiritual is so much of a roadblock for so many people, because how they translate that word, whether it's that they think it's religion, whether they think it's crystals and barefoot and whatever you want it, everywhere in the world it is translated differently, and that becomes an obstacle for a lot of people to go on that journey, or to even accept a conversation that might be around that. So when we talk about it, I will, as Shira said, you've got to change your conversation with who the market is you're talking to. So if it's educators, it's different. Children, we do it with children, but they're so much easier because they don't have the baggage and the containers you were talking about, Shira. We're doing that earlier, right? But when we're talking about the reactive work and what I'm seeing in the Web3 community globally, is that burnout, is that degen scenario, whatever that even is. But it's not a badge of honor. Well, it is seen as that, but it's actually not, because the quality of not only their life but the life of their community and the people that they love and spend is plummet really quickly. So for me, I try to use the right words for the right person, and it's not so much a demographic of 18 to 24-year-old males. It's like the person and where they're at, Layla, where you sort of said. But I do think that if we get the language right, or the right thing, it's the same as when we listen to somebody else, not our own parents, when we're teenagers. If we hear the same thing from somebody else, we're like, oh, that makes sense. And that's why having vast diversity and ranges like we've got in this panel and across wellness in Web3 is so important, because I could say the same thing that Shira could say, or Sin could say, or Brad or Layla, and a different person will get it, even if we're all saying the same thing. And that's what's really important, I think. So yeah, for me, my roadblock was for me personally spiritual, the word. And so I stopped using it, and it has been transformative for the hundreds of people who've gone through the work that we do.
Yeah, very much, Rebecca. I think that what an excellent, bringing together of those ideas, because I think it is, I see spirituality almost as like an island, and we all get there in different ways, in different forms, but it is expressed and articulated differently as well, because at the essence of it, we're all more the same than we are different, but there is definitely some resonates more than others in different kind of ways. So I would
trauma for me was linked to the word spiritual. So whether that's from religious background growing up, like it was trauma related, which is why I couldn't get past the block. So I know that that's the same for a lot of people, but I just wanted to just sort of chuck that in there. Sorry, Jody.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely so true, and to be very aware of that, and very mindful of that. So, I mean, oh my goodness, I could keep this conversation going for hours, and feel like I still haven't heard enough, but we will wrap things up. But I would love, Shira, if you could, if someone was tuning in today and watching this, and they took one thing away from this idea of mindfulness practices to help our minds, our busy mind, what would be just something that you could say that would just someone could take away from here and process from there?
Well, let's see. A takeaway from today. I think that speaking to the complexity of the times that we live in, and all the kind of fascinating interfaces of technology. I mean, technology is it's a catalyst, it's an accelerant, it's a transformer, and I think that the task at hand is, or perhaps the takeaway is that we have to figure out how we're going to come into relationship with ourselves, with technology, and find ground and relationship, because that's I'm a little biased here. But I feel very strongly that relationships are absolutely essential to our sense of well-being in life. And so it's learning to make space for all of these competing, I want to say, competing pieces for our attention. And mindfulness is for me the most approachable and the most tangible and the most accessible way to track. You know, it's really a walk. It's like chopping wood and carrying water. And I think the complexity and the ambiguity sometimes of modern life can really feel very overwhelming. I think all of us, not just clients or patients, just the demands of day-to-day life can feel excessive and overwhelming. And so just to be able, even if you can't get to the beach, I mean, sometimes it's stepping in the bathroom. Like certainly for COVID, it was just like, go in the closet, go in the bathroom, take 5 minutes.
Absolutely. Look, this is only the beginning. This conversation, we plan many conversations in lots of different ways on Twitter Spaces, interviews in our Discord, but we really are having mindfulness as a very special focus within Spiritual Beings, because we do believe in that. And thank you so much today, Rebecca, Sin, Brad, Layla, Shira, for joining us. I have just loved this time together, and I thank you for all of your insight, and we will, I'm sure, be talking again soon. So thank you everyone for enjoying this session. I know that you would have gleaned so much out of it, and as I said, it's just the beginning. Many more conversations to come. So thank you everyone, and we will say bye for now.